Okay, we're off.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to have this interactive discussion with us on what's turning out to be a very, very warm day here in Europe and also in New York. So we hope you all are ready for a heated discussion despite the temperatures. I'm really honored today to be here with Akhil and Tatiana to talk about the state of ESG and creating better businesses for a better planet in 2024. Um, I'm really excited because I work as a brand strategist with numerous large international brands, and many of them are facing in 2024 a lot of sort of pushback from consumers and from their boards of directors and from their colleagues about generating measurable, meaningful, practical results when it comes to ESG, CO2 reduction, and with regard to the goals we all have to make a healthier planet and a healthier society for us to live in. And I believe the experience that Akhil has, especially with the ability to do data analytics, to provide a certifiable and a process-oriented approach to sustainability is critical. And I'm very excited that he's working with Tatiana Alexa, uh, who has found a way to not only take and certify effective ESG activities, but to connect it very clearly with the demands of consumers and the production of brands so that we can harmonize both demand and production to reduce overproduction and reduce waste, and at the same time to harmonize and intelligently coordinate our manufacturing activities. So the combination of Green Story from Akhil and Sangrove with its impact shopping from Tatiana is, I believe, a real dream team and something that we look forward to not only explaining to you today, but more importantly, to hear your questions. We think 2024 is a time to be extremely critical about ESG, to be extremely critical about whether programs are not only helping ESG goals, but improving our profit margins. We think it's possible. If you can improve profits and achieve ESG goals, you have something that is sustainable, not only for the planet, but sustainable for your business models. So I want to hand over now to Akhil and Tatiana a description of their services and how they plan to work together. And please, everybody, don't forget, there's always room for comments, which I'll be checking, and we can stop to answer questions during the presentation, but we prefer also if we could leave a little time at the end to answer any of your questions.
Thanks, Alex. Tatiana, maybe I'll leave it to you to start with Sangro first, and I can talk about Green Story and how the two services connect.
Sure. Happy to be invited to this live presentation because I think I'm super excited that now that there is a chance to connect something that's going on in the ESG and sustainability, especially when we are talking about sustainable fashion and apparel, which is measuring and bringing activities within the product development and supply chain, but the consumers were never part of that story. Consumer is pretty much is a passive figure in all of these scenarios who are supposed to choose a green product. And when we've been looking for new ways to, first of all, bring more action, steer more action from the consumer, but also deliver a verifiable and scalable solution to reduce carbon footprint to the industry, we saw the very clear opportunity that there is a demand for more action. Again, give something very practical to consumer to act on without asking for their time or convenience, and at the same time give them the opportunity to create impact. And I'm underscoring creating impact. And at the same time, tackling a huge problem of overproduction which is in apparel and fashion, counts up to 30%, which is a mind-boggling number, especially for me, as my background is a software development for Wall Street mostly, and as I joke within this circle that, we used to count fraction of cents, not even dollars, cents. And how come in 21st century, and it's, it's already 24th year, and with all digital solutions, we still didn't find the way to minimize excess of inventory, to get rid of that stock. So that's what Sangrove is all about, and I'm super excited about the opportunity to connect what we've been doing as a New York-based, mission-driven innovations and tech startup with Akhil and Green Story as a veterans actually of the sustainable fashion place. Akhil?
Fantastic. Thanks, Tatiana. So, I mean, super excited about everything that Sangrove's doing. Just to introduce myself, I'm the CEO of Green Story. We've been in the space for over 8 years now, and the fundamental mission for Green Story is to really help over 1 billion consumers understand their impact and make better choices for the planet. And a big part of what we do is working with fashion, apparel, textile supply chains to help them quantify this. So we're big believers in good data, because good data leads to better decisions, not just for consumers, but also for brands. And as work has gone more and more, like we've been focusing more on that life cycle assessment piece of things, really helping brands and manufacturers understand the entire supply chain, understand the issues within that, get good verified data that they can use to make better decisions, and hopefully present that to the consumers as well. So as a team, we have a lot of in-depth expertise in life cycle assessments and fashion supply chains. Uh, for example, our chief sustainability officer is Dr. Kanan Muthu, who has written pretty much the Bible in this space when it comes to LCA and 189 other books. And we have a team of 16 PhDs and analysts who kind of work on this, as well as a strong technical team. So it's a global team of over 40 people who helps brands and manufacturers with all of this. And what I really liked about the Sangro value proposition was definitely that consumer feedback loop is missing a lot of the times, because you have brands and manufacturers doing everything to reduce their supply chains, reduce the impact that they have, meet the science-based targets, and they're looking at decoupling the growth from the impact that they have. But at the same time, a lot of that growth is driven by throwing a dart at the wall sometimes, just kind of understanding what consumers want. I'd like to share a quick slide if that makes sense, Alex, just to
Yeah, no, because I
explain
think
this.
a visualization of the connections between Sandgrove and between Green Story would make a lot of sense at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is how we see this. On the left side, you have the Green Story value proposition, and the right, Sangro. So on the left, it's really about right data, really built on the supply chain. So with the Green Story platform and with our services, you're able to coordinate all your supply chain sustainability data in one place and get granular with it. Calculate the impact at the product level, and that's how the lifecycle assessment comes in, and utilize that then to offset, communicate your impact, and comply with the regulatory requirements that are coming up. So it's the right data to address the issues in your supply chain and present them. But with Sandgrove, you kind of are able to then present this data to your customers pre-production, right? This is what I really like about it, the idea of really understanding what your customers are looking for, and bringing the consumers along in this decision making. And that has a huge reduction over production. We recently did a life cycle assessment for Unspun, which is a now a hot new startup in the US. And one of the key things that they have is really on made to order. Uh, for their production, and the impact reduction that we saw in that was quite significant. And what the Sangro platforms allowing companies to do is actually address that by bringing the customers along, getting that understanding, and engaging your consumers in sustainability efforts. And then you can feed it back to your supply chain team, to your logistics team. So you kind of have this positive feedback loop going where now you have better data to then feed back to your consumers and see how they react to that, and then feed that back to streamline your production. So that's the idea with what we are planning here with Sangrove.
Tatiana, do you want to talk about the importance of that transparency and the ability to bring consumers into the product development and product marketing process to improve efficiencies?
Sure, because the whole idea of our technology is based on creating a new motivation for consumers to shop before production begins. And we are actually working on the new language for that activity, if you will, because as a new way of shopping, of creating a healthy consumption. And I'm a huge advocate for not shaming and guilt-tripping consumers for doing something that they love to do. And we all need consumption as a integral part of the economy. We don't want to kill it, right? We want to steer it in the right direction and find ways to create healthy consumption. So consumers are, with the help of our platform, we are enabling a new message for brands and retailers to invite consumers to shop for the new product. And especially it's important when the product is unknown. So think about your product launches or new collections, or the brand exploring the new assortment or new category and wants to de-risk this activity. So at all of these moments, Sangrove and Green Story are your partner and your great supporter, because we can bring consumer on board with the new message of advanced purchasing that we called impact purchasing. And the products are available to D2C shopping. So think about your e-commerce platform where we embed our code, so the products are become visible with this new message and label that this product are available with impact, with a clear, again, data as we calculating the impact of this advanced purchasing. So the carbon footprint of each potential product and aggregating consumer demand through a limited time offer at the critical time and the critical pain point of the product launch before anything is manufactured. That's where what we enable to brands and retailers to invite consumers to shop with the new ways.
No, that sounds great. I think this is something from my current and past experiences with fashion brands has been very important when they come to me to discuss about Shein and Temu, for example. And what Shein and Temu are doing is they're finding out and interacting with the demands and preferences of consumers. Based on those demands and preferences, they're launching small batches of products, seeing how the consumers are responding, and then able to educate and inform and basically find a very intelligent way to get, first of all, consumers the products they want at the prices they want. And the consumers are willing to wait. I think that's the most amazing thing. You wait on Temu, you wait on Shein. And people are very much focusing on all the various tax advantages or tariff issues, but I think the real important thing is it allows manufacturing and consumption to be brought much closer together. And I think also, Akhil, your service allows the pain points in production, which are hurting ESG goals, to be revealed to consumers. If we charge more, we're going to solve this problem. We're going to be able to do something. And I think this idea of bringing the consumer, especially with today's social commerce acceptance in markets like China and a growth in the US and Europe, is really going to be important. Do you guys also see this as a logical new view, especially in relationship to Shein and Temu?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we hear and see a fear, especially here in U.S. market, because Shein has been so aggressive to take our teenagers and Gen Z, into this very cheap offers. And I don't know if you guys in Europe saw the SNL clip that was became very viral. So it is a real threat to brands and retailers, right? And we are looking at it again from the perspective of like, okay, consumers are willing to wait. They are willing to wait because of the price. But we are talking about, when we are talking about sustainable fashion, that of course, like a low-hanging fruit is educated consumer. And here in the U.S., our colleges and kindergartens cook the sustainable-minded consumer every day, but we are lacking convenient, easy-to-use tools for these kids to act on. So why don't we create a capability to beat Shein at the brand's level by enabling, if you will, a Shein-like capability, but with a clear ESG-related message, with verification and certification that comes with the merged platforms and integrated solution, Sangrove and Impact Shopping, that's the name of our solution, and Green Story, that can verify carbon footprint and averted emissions to the each particular supplier.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea behind our partnership and integrated solution.
And I think that's one of the things I wanted to ask Akhil very quickly. Do you think that part of Shein and Temu's success is that they just use data better, and they turn data not only into what
I
the
mean,
people want, they make it more fun. Yeah, and the Temu
it's
is more
undeniable.
interactive and more fun. Yeah, yeah. Well, what did you think about that, Akhil?
Yeah, I think that's the immediate thing that kind of popped up on my mind when you asked the question, Alex, was like, yeah, they're just better at it. Simply put, everybody has the same data, but the thing is, you can use if you're given a tool, you can use it for good or bad. And I don't want to pass judgment here because they are a separate business altogether, but they're using it in like a hyper capitalist way, in a sense of we have this. How do we accelerate growth? How do we, really use that data and react to consumers in a way they want? And it's very obvious that they're reacting to them in the way they want, shown by the growth that they're having. Now, the same data could be used by other brands uh, in the right way. And what I mean by that is like the issue sometimes that happens with Shein and Temu and all these other systems is like it really becomes about just providing the same pathways and the choice architecture that's already there, which is like the cut of the fabric, the colors, and the price, right? It doesn't give the entirety of knowledge and entirety of cost, which is what we want to enable right now, where we say like, hey, here is the total cost of it, here is the environmental impact, here's all of these things, and the consumers today are educated enough to start making decisions based off that, right? And what Shein and it's not just them, it's like a lot of brands are hiding is like the overall cost. And what we have seen in the work that we've done is if you give them that immediate cost top of mind during their customer journey, they are much more likely to make decisions based off that. Net net, if everything is equal, they're even willing to pay a little bit more from it, anywhere from 15 to 30% more, depending on the brands that we've worked with. So it stops becoming like this race to the bottom because you can't race to the bottom to somebody who's already there. So you kind of have to then look at differentiation and giving that same data but enhancing your strengths with it rather than kind of saying, okay, how do we meet them over there?
No, I think it's also very important. This data and the processes that both your organizations are using allows also for the development of a community of shoppers. or a community of like-minded individuals. And I think this adds the emotional element, the social commerce, the aggregated demand, then gives you new data. I've always been very surprised when my fashion or automotive or other clients have to turn to third parties to find out what their customers want, that they somehow have lost contact. And I think if this is a really great, both of what you're doing is a great tool to get a better insight into what motivates consumers by giving them a chance to play with information, to play with data, to see where they're willing to make commitments.
Alexander, if you will, to continue on that point, you're absolutely right. As like, why employ others to do surveys, and we know that it doesn't work, right? Everyone's saying like, of course, we ask consumers, but these surveys or these focus groups, it's not a commitment. The only commitment that counts is people buying this product. And again, in our case, and that's what we're pushing, that you are buying a product with a clear understanding that only products that aggregate enough demand within a critical time of the decision making of a variety of the products that will be pushed through purchasing orders to the suppliers and manufacturers, right? So only those products that receive the critical demand towards the threshold of minimum quantity orders, so only those products will be produced, and we can calculate impact of each shopper and their activity on their through impact shopping. Again, it's all powered by the data that is circulated between Green Story and Sangrove. So the clear benefit for the brands, and I want to again speak not only about consumers, but speak about industry as well. That is looking for new business methods, less wasteful business methods, and looking for the way to boost margins. And this is not antagonistic ideas that we can boost margins, we can boost the brand's standing and reputation, we can boost consumer loyalty to the brand while creating impact.
Yeah, I think that's been proven, that there are a lot of brands that have been able to raise their prices in the current environment because they have stories, because they're communicating, they're creating products for their customers, while other players in the same market space aren't growing as fast. So if you look at, like, for example, an Hermes that is growing like crazy, and you look at a Burberry that is falling apart, you can look at a Lululemon that continues to grow with strong margins versus a Nike, which is having issues. So I think, again, if you have a good story, if you have a good engaging presentation of intelligent information, and you connect and bring people along on a journey, we're starting to get much better results. And I think that's one of the issues about the digital transformation. I don't know if you guys agree that perhaps 20 years ago, people didn't have time to read and to get involved with data, but today, everybody is interested in data. Data is everywhere. And I think especially younger shoppers are very, very interested in learning more about data and data points and the kinds of consequences to our activities and how we can make trade-offs. Akhil, do you see that also, that people are ready to make choices based on data, even if they're young shoppers?
Absolutely. So one of the interesting things that we were experimenting with when we started off the company was really about communicating this, really by engineering in a lot of ways what Shein and all these companies are doing, the customer journey, right? So to kind of look at it and say, like, at what points do people make decisions, and how do you give the right information at the right time so they make better decisions off that. So the Green Story, digital passport, metrics, everything that we do are an offshoot of that, right? It's really kind of seeing, how do you help engineer better decisions? How do you frame things so that you can make decisions that are more environmentally friendly? which in a way it's the other side of the coin with what Shein and all these companies do, is like how do you get people to buy more as they enter the store, right? So this is we've actually experimented with this and done a lot of A/B tests. So we've seen that if all things are equal and we give them the right information at the right point, the possibility of a customer following through on a sustainable purchase is anywhere from 50 to 200% more. And we've actually seen that jump in conversion from the shops that we've integrated with. So this is incredibly powerful as long as that method is authentic. Where it backfires is if you're trying to say like, oh, do all of this, but as a brand, you're not really committing to it. You're not really talking about it. It's just something that's there and it's orphaned out. Then it doesn't do anything, or at worst, it might adversely affect you as a company. So it's really important to be authentic in that communication as well, right? It's not just, you know, like one of the things you have with all of these companies that are fast growing in the fast fashion space is they are authentic in what they do. They're really talking about, this is what you get. You get new styles. That's it. That's what we do, right? So it is important as for a sustainable brand to also be authentic in what they do, and that's where you really see that growth, and you see that traction as a company. And what is interesting about what Tatiana said and the solution in general was also that it does enable you to feel the pulse of your customer and kind of ensure that the messaging also would reflects that. So you can listen to them, understand them, and make sure that you're connecting with them in the right way. So it before you even spent a dime on production, in a sense, right? You're kind of then able to experiment more. And this is also very important in terms of the costs associated with switching production later on. If you find that your producers are not really in line with what your requirements are, whether sustainability or otherwise, it takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months to switch over, and that's extremely expensive. And in many opportunity costs is also there on top of all of that. So that's something where like the more knowledge and the better data that you have, the more streamlined your company is, the more agile it is.
Yeah, it's the power of early sales data. We speak a lot with head of merchants of like enterprise level brands who are sharing their story of like, they get the data 4 weeks after the product hits the floor. It's too late. All decisions were made way back.
2 years ago.
And those decisions are costly. So the early sales data is a goal. It's again, we don't need to undermine that we're talking about a highly antiquated, if you will, industry, and that we are trying to push new methods and new innovations, new technologies. But we're advocating for starting small. How about we start with one line? How about we start with one collaboration? How about we start with one product, offering it into multiple colors, but instead of producing it in the multiple colors, let's push it to consumer with the idea that they can create impact. Their shopping is super valuable, and they can create impact by shopping with advanced purchasing through the tool that's called impact shopping. And the data, again, measuring the ESG compliant records, because we deliver not only early sales data to merchants, we deliver KPIs to heads of sustainability, right? So these KPIs are enabled with the integration with a green story and powered by carbon footprint and product assessment with help of green story.
I mean, I like the idea that brands can say, well, we would love to make this product. We would love to work with this manufacturer, but we're scared that it will be too expensive. And then being able to offer to consumers to say, look, this is the dream ESG product. This is the responsible, high quality product that we think is most beautiful, but it will cost this. Normally, we don't charge this for our products. Would you be willing to pre-order for this limited edition special product that fulfills both of our goals? So the product goes from us pushing to you based on limited data to a we product where companies can work together with consumers to achieve these ESG goals. And I think that's something which I think is very important, that ESG is not just about manufacturers, it's about consumers too. And sort of bringing that together allows people to have fun with the process. This transparency of information makes information important. And I think this is, to an extent, what Shein and Temu did, is they said, you know what? It's inflationary periods. Consumers are hurting. We're bringing to you the products you want at cheaper prices. You just have to wait a little bit. Yeah. And don't forget, most of the products on Temu and Shein don't get, but because they can use algorithms, they can focus it. So we're saying is, hey, wait a second, stop buying more, start getting more of what you want, start getting products you feel better about, and let's do that together. I don't know if that kind of data-driven cooperation is something that you guys think is really a future going forward, and that consumers will respond positively.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's a huge part of it, right? Like it's really, as Tatiana said, an antiquated industry where a lot of data comes far too late. And there is one kind of big, let's say, Damocles sword hanging around all of this. It is the sustainability regulations and the role of the sustainability manager. And if you actually talk to a lot of companies out there, they don't know what to do with that role. This is somebody who's suddenly come in, and there have been these institutions which have been operating for decades as they are, and now suddenly this new role is, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this. And the sustainability managers are trying to figure out how to kind of get this organizations to move in the right way. And it's difficult because it's like a completely different dynamic. It becomes this three-body problem, right? Like around this. So now so what this kind of data allows is kind of put that common thread in where, look, this can lead to cost savings. This can in an easier way, because if you do it regularly, absolutely it can, but it's harder for them to engage with the commercial team, with the sourcing team, and not just be this annoyance to them where they're rolling their eyes every time the sustainability manager sends them like yet another report to file. Here it's like, okay, now there's actual engagement which has real business impact that they can see immediately, saying like, okay, this is what our consumers like, this is how the production will change, and here is how then sustainability can get involved in kind of making it better and cleaner, and you have this loop going, right? And that's the ideal scenario.
I agree, and if I may a little bit, challenge you on that, because I think that shopping will always be about the product. If I don't like the product, there is nothing sustainable about it that will force me to wear it, right? What we are focusing on, like, before we show the product to consumer, we don't know what they will like, whether or not they will like it, whether or not they will embrace it. And this is the pain point that we can now address. And saving the environment is actually a byproduct of generating this early sales data with a verifiable, immutable record of impact that our two platforms integrated together can bring to both parties, to consumers, because every time consumers shop this way, we create the record of impact that can later on be exchanged for more incentives, perks, discounts, and etc. And at the same time, we are creating the ESG compliant record of impact to the brands that can be shared with all stakeholders. So that's where the essence of our joint work comes together. But again, there is nothing wrong with creating a lot of products, and how about over designing but not over producing?
I think giving some more power back to consumers and making that process where the data becomes gamified so people enjoy the data. They look forward to it, they better understand, and they say, oh, that's why I want to pay $5 or €5 more for this product. Right? This is why I want to wait for this product. So it becomes part of a story. And I think that's something which fascinated me because there's been a huge shift towards the use of influencers or content generated by other shoppers. And I think that's something too, where you can create a sticky story with this improved data that drives consumers to want to engage. I think that's sort of one of the big questions I have for you guys is that it seems now that this looking not for differentiated data, but sort of this generic data, backward-looking data seems to be being pushed by AI. Do you see also that AI and perhaps the use of influencers or the creation of generic content is more of a distraction from more high-quality data, high-quality interactions?
I'm, call me a naturalist, but I believe if we connect the power of intelligence that it's inside of each of us and inside of each consumer in a smart way, this will beat any artificial intelligence. That's my point, that we can connect the shopping preferences and shopping experience of, I don't know, the in a scalable way for unaccounted number of consumers and see their preferences at the point where we are making a decision, and I mean the industry is making a decision whether or not this is my best seller, future best seller, so I don't miss on the outstock. How about that? It's a missing revenue, but usually people find out about it, too late. Or this is a future low-performing inventory that doesn't need to be produced. We already know that consumers are not embracing this color or this shape or this particular trend.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think AI for us is useful if you put a really clear fence around it. I think the issue with generative AI, for example, if you're putting it out in the wild and you're not really controlling the data, is it kind of becomes like starts feeding on itself, right? And you get worse and worse data. So for us, one of the ways we're utilizing AI is actually cleaning up the supply chain data. So within the context of data that we already have and understanding it is saying like, okay, you don't have these kind of gaps. So instead of having somebody with 20 years of supply chain experience go ahead and do that with 99% accuracy to fill in that data, maybe get 85% accuracy by training the AI on data that's already kind of curated and cleaned up and checked. So you have a better estimate on what that supply chain looks like. Or look at other things. We talked about greenwashing just briefly on how companies are talking about sustainability. Maybe use that AI system to check if what you're saying on your website, on your media is actually correct, or is another thing we are experimenting with. But it should be around that, because I see AI as a very useful tool, but I don't see it as a miracle cure that a lot of companies are seeing it and touting it as. It is another system, if it's used correctly, can be absolutely amazing, right? Like can be really well done, but I don't think companies should kind of look for a magic bullet. And this happens a lot within sustainability in general. Like every time there's a new hype, whether it's blockchain, whether it's AI, they're like, okay, good, great. We'll just implement blockchain everywhere. We'll just implement AI everywhere. Sustainability solved. Done. Let's go to the next thing, right?
Yeah,
But
instead it's a combination of the tools and actually our integrated solution is a perfect example of like, each solution is great by its own, but oh my God, we're so powerful when we are together.
Yeah, and I would agree with you both that AI is definitely a tool. And it's great for things like due diligence, for checking information, for grooming information, but it isn't about what we're talking about today, which is inspiring consumers, bringing the consumers into the process of ESG, bringing them into the process of creating better margins with a focus on discounting and revenue growth, which I think we've seen with brands like Ralph Lauren and others that have really turned around their whole profitability story. Instead of selling more and more and more of generic and undifferentiated, selling more and more brands, we're able to solidify their activities and become much more successful. I think we've reached a point now where just over half an hour. Would you guys like to see if there's any questions that we have, or is there any other specific topics you would like to discuss? I don't know if the audience, if there's any questions that you guys have. Otherwise, we can continue our discussion here.
I'll let the audience go first.
You guys have any questions that you'd like to share, either in the notes, or we can invite you into the discussion?
Don't be shy, post a question in chat.
I think, meantime, while we're talking about this, I'd love to understand, Alex, from your point of view, how companies are currently looking at this issue, right, around overconsumption and production, and how that is being treated right now, or if it's being completely ignored.
Yeah, I think it's being completely ignored. So when I bring up the issue of overproduction, they're like, oh, they get kind of excited. They love this term zero waste. It makes them very excited. And we talk about now, because we're in 2024, we're heading into a highly inflationary environment. So we're real consumption. And this is what a lot of my clients like to do, is they say, well, our revenues went up 8%. And I say, yeah, but you raised your prices 15%. So let's stop the game playing and let's talk about market share. Oh, let's talk about margins. You know, are your consumers willing to pay more than the competition because you're offering more? Let's talk about loyalty. Let's talk about engagement and return on investment. And that's, I think, the real tough questions that people want to address, but it's quite easy for them when they have their agencies who say, let's win an award. Let's do something fun with a brand. Oh, I know this really great athlete. Oh, there's this amazing singer, you know, and let's do a campaign with them. And it'll get a lot of clicks. And then at the end of the day, there's something called a return on marketing investment. Call me a nerd, but that's what I'm all about. And overproduction for me is just horrible for margins. I think I'm also, like I mentioned earlier, discounting destroys brands. I've seen it happen before. And I think it'll happen again now when people are sitting on huge amounts of inventory. This happened with Adidas before their recent focus on some of their classic shoes. They were really just getting killed by too much product. And it has to do with the placing inside of their distribution channels. Another game that people are playing now when they can't sell as much as they'd like, they're working with department stores who are suddenly back in vogue again. You know, where the guys at Adidas and Nike said, oh, we have to do more with Foot Locker. I'm like, no, you don't. You have to get your production together, guys. Stop overproducing. Keep your desirability. And I think that's really something that's become very important on social media. And we've seen it with brands when they get it right. Like Hoka is doing well, On Running is doing really well because they're creating desirability. They're doing it with higher prices. So where people are saying, maybe I'd rather have one really cool new $150 pair of sneakers from Hoka than to have two $75 ones from Nike or from another brand. And I think that's really where we're going, where again, it's convincing people and explaining to your consumers, we want to do better quality. We want to do higher prices because we want to get you something better that's also better for the planet. And I think that's what needs to be done, instead of just saying, how can we get more clicks to our eShop? How can we get more engagement rates? And I think that's something which brands are looking at today. And I think that's something that we all would like to discuss with brands, is how to create smarter, more intelligent, more sticky relationships that just generate better profits and better relationships with manufacturers as well as with the consumers, and sort of create that transparency, which you can do when you're premium. When you're Shein, you don't want that transparency. It's the last thing they want. That's the last thing. Temu doesn't want you to know who their factory is because that's their relationship. So I think other brands who don't own their own factories, and that's most of you brands out there, start opening it up. Start working with your factories, get better relationships by bringing them into the light of day. Not when some NGO comes and says, did you know that your manufacturer is doing 1, 2, 3? That's not the kind of relationship. I think bringing them into the light and making it more open is something people are really interested in. People like information if the information is fun and engaging. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, and I think it's a good moment to say that if you'd like to know how our two solutions will work for your particular brand or your particular marketplace, please reach out. We would love to follow up and create a particular use case for your situation and follow up with a call. And there again, either you're a small brand that wants to minimize its risks by creating a new assortment or engaged into more sustainable materials, for example, but don't know whether or not you will be able to sell this product, this can be a perfect moment to reach out to us. Or if you're a large organization that, especially our friends in Europe that now know that the regulation is there and you have a year and a half to come up with new ways how to report on that stock or better minimize it because transparency is coming. So it's a perfect time to engage. And again, we don't discriminate by size. So any problem that you see at the point of making decision on the new product launch or creating new stories, engaging stories for your consumers to stand out in the competition with a new message, with, if you will, a flag that will bring consumer attention to your particular brand at the same time boosting your margins. So please reach out.
I think, I don't know if there's any additional questions from our audience or panel members. I think maybe now is a good time to start to wrap up and to create a consolidation of some of our thinking. Yeah, so again, I think from the perspective that we've discussed today, both Green Story and Sangrove are committed to improving businesses and improving processes. And by doing this, the relationships that companies and consumers have to data, the relationships they have to their demand, to production, to their partners, whether they're data partners, whether they're distribution partners, whether they're manufacturing partners, are really something that can be improved. Obviously, this is essential for brands that want to be value adding to their customers. If you're selling a commodity, I don't think we can really help you, right? If you're selling toothpaste and it's the same kind of toothpaste that everybody else is, or you're selling over-the-counter drugs where the recipe is written, there's not really much that we can do. You guys know how to improve your ESG. There's nothing really here. I think when there's much more of an emotional choice involved, especially a brand, where you really want to show or work with customers to create this bond, which goes beyond creating a commodity red cup or a typical, blue cotton t-shirt. You really want to do something special. Then I think you're really in a great shape to work with Green Story and to work with Sangrove. I think, as Tatiana mentioned, and as Akhil mentioned, creating this impact based on intelligent data is really an investment worth making. The only issue that we have to say is that it requires some work, it requires some understanding and some care, but we think it's really worth it. And it'll show up not only in your ESG reporting, but in your margins as well.
Thank you, Alex. Really well put. And I'd like to say, as Tatiana mentioned, if you're interested in reaching out, we'll be sending out the email with the contact details, but you can also see it here. In Green Story, you can reach out to me at akhil@greenstory.io. Or from Sangrove, you can reach out to Tatiana at tatiana.alexa@sangrove.com.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great conversation, everybody, and it's something you really need to discuss. And I think Akhil and Tatiana are amazing listeners, and that if we start down this road, you'll be able to find options and potentials which we think you can build business cases around. And it's not just a fluffy, nice, let's save the planet approach. This is really concrete business case driven results. And I look forward to hearing more about how people are moving towards this more intelligent future.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Alexander, thank you,
Okay.
Akhil.
Thanks for your time, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you and take care. Bye.